So then what's the danger of using antitrust in this way? If it's an ill-suited tool, sometimes you can use ill-suited tools to get the job done, and it's just a little messier than ideal. But what's the downside risk of using this tool to advance free speech principles?
Well, I kind of think of it in two different ways. I mean, in some ways, you're right that sometimes you can use an ill-suited tool to do something that it's not really, you can use a screwdriver to pound a nail, maybe. Using antitrust for free speech is a bit more like using a jackhammer to brush your teeth. Like, it's probably not going to get your teeth clean, and it's probably going to cause a big mess in the meantime. Current law just doesn't reach the kinds of concerns that we're worried about in content moderation. So in order to use antitrust to reach some of these issues, I think you'd really have to change antitrust law, which means antitrust law applies across all industries. And so you're changing to deal with a problem in one industry, you'd be changing law that applies to all industries. And in many ways, we'd be going back to some of the solutions that have been offered that would make antitrust law maybe able to try to address these problems. Go back to some of the old ways that we did antitrust that just sort of have concerns about big is bad, or that we want to talk about political power when we're thinking about antitrust, and use all these different factors rather than approaching whether or not there's a harm to competition. I think, and we argue in the paper, that doing this sort of change to antitrust law would actually, not only would it not help free speech, it would actually provide a big tool that government could use to threaten speech. And we have plenty of examples in history of presidents in particular, but also competitors who used antitrust to threaten the speech of others. There's these great examples of Nixon having his advisors threaten the major broadcasters with antitrust lawsuits if they didn't do things like broadcast his daughter's wedding. Just the most manipulative things that you can think of. And because of antitrust is a powerful tool, the more arbitrary you make it, the more you raise the risk that it could actually become a threat to free speech.
And I think from the perspective of American audiences, for that matter, too, the current regime, and basically in the current system where Facebook particularly is one of the drivers, one of the largest companies where more people are using that platform, Facebook may fail at promoting voice, but voice has been one of the key driving forces behind Facebook since it was started. And Mark Zuckerberg has been very public about wanting to see that continue and wanting to lean in on that more. If you break Facebook up, whatever that means, and that's a whole separate conversation. What exactly would it look like to break up Facebook? Is it regional Facebooks? Is it like a A through D Facebook and an E through H Facebook? Like, what does it look like to break it up? But if you broke Facebook up, the network effect, basically people are going to want that larger audience. People are going to migrate to whatever the platform is that gives them the opportunity for a broader audience. And if you break up the larger tech companies like Facebook and Google and Twitter, do you just end up then empowering companies that are not US-based companies that are not subject to the same pressures? And essentially, do we all end up on TikTok? And is TikTok then, or some other Chinese company that is not operating from the same free speech framework even, that we would think of in terms of wanting to see broader protection of expression on the platform and seeing that as a significant value, does that become the predominant platform? If that's the case, then you haven't advanced expression at all. All you've done is sort of empower a new platform that doesn't have those many of those same values at all.